Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss what Jeremy Corbyn is planning to do in order to oppose Boris Johnson's Brexit and what his legal and political options are. But first, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So, Jeremy Corbyn, leader of the Labour Party and the official leader of the opposition in Parliament, has written a letter to Sir Mark Sedwill, who is the Cabinet Secretary, to clarify a point on the limits of government behaviour during a general election campaign. This is because Jeremy Corbyn has given a clear message that he intends to issue a motion to test confidence in Boris Johnson's government. If Johnson loses the votes, then the Fixed Terms Parliament Act triggers a 14-day period whereby one of three things happens. 1. Parliament votes in favour of a different MP to become Prime Minister. As I already discussed this week, this is the only guaranteed way to stop a no-deal Brexit, but Corbyn has ruled out supporting such a move. 2. Boris Johnson himself wins a confidence vote within this time frame and we're all back where we started. It seems unlikely that Parliament would do this. 3. If 14 days passes and no MP has the confidence of the House to form a government, then a general election is automatically triggered. So should a general election be triggered, Boris Johnson as Prime Minister has the legal right to name the date. He will name a date after the current Article 50 deadline. As a result, triggering a general election will not stop no-deal Brexit, or at least not if you accept that no deal is the legal default. There is real doubt about that, but that's a topic for another video coming very soon. However, when a general election is about to happen, Parliament is dissolved, so the last few weeks of the Article 50 period would see the UK have no sitting Parliament, though it would still have a government. Now, in this situation, there is a convention called PERDA. This dictates that the government does not make any major policy decisions or actions which could be at odds with what a new government might want to do. Jeremy Corbyn is arguing that taking us out of the EU without a deal is a major constitutional change to the UK, which is unlikely to be supported by any new government that could be formed after a general election. As such, he is asking Sir Mark if it's incumbent upon Boris Johnson to seek an extension to Article 50 under these circumstances, so that such a massive constitutional change is not triggered during PERDA. Sir Mark has not yet responded, though he will do. I suspect the letter of response is going to need to be very carefully worded. I also suspect that Sir Mark, even if he agrees that the Prime Minister should seek an extension, that there won't be a legal compulsion for Boris Johnson to comply. But I don't think the response will be as such. Yes, exiting the EU without a deal is a huge constitutional change for the UK that no other government would possibly agree to. As such, if Boris Johnson took any action to achieve this, he would be flying against convention. However, such an event doesn't require Boris Johnson to take any action. He'd simply be doing nothing. It's an inaction. We will wait for the official response, but I suspect the letter is just for political benefit and won't do anything to prevent a no deal. So, given that Boris Johnson seems determined to press ahead with no deal and Jeremy Corbyn refuses to accept any alternative government that doesn't see him as Prime Minister, what are Labour's options? So, back when Theresa May was Prime Minister, Parliament legislated to make it a legal requirement for her to seek an extension. To have not done so would mean she was breaking the law. Now, Parliament could easily do the same with Boris Johnson, and if they did, I'd have no doubt at all that he would comply and go along to the EU Council meeting and utter the words, "Can we have an extension, please?" However, I'm also quite sure that his speech would include a tirade of abuse towards the other council members, probably France in particular. That would make it politically impossible, surely, for them to agree to an extension. Imagine if President Macron agreed to an extension for a British Prime Minister who's already called the French people turds and might well call them other choice names during the meeting itself. So although legislating to force the Prime Minister to seek an extension might form part of the plan, on its own it has no guarantees. Of course, the EU Council might well grant the extension anyway just to spite Johnson, but I don't think we can rely on that. The second option is for Parliament to vote to revoke Article 50. Now, I've already spoken about the prospects of that earlier today, so I won't labour the point, no pun intended. Needless to say that I don't think it's likely, as it would be hugely divisive, and there is a less controversial way of avoiding no deal that Parliament would have to ignore in order to get to this point. Finally, Parliament could amend the Fixed Terms Parliament Act. The Act states that the Prime Minister may advise the Queen as to when the general election should be. Now, that's the law. But Parliament can change the law. That's what they're there for. So the Act could be amended by Parliament to put a tighter time limit on proceedings. That could mean that a vote of no confidence triggered early enough could see a general election held before the end of October. It would need immediate action as soon as Parliament returns, but it could be done. They've already shown the ability to pass legislation in a couple of days and could easily do so again. But this is also not a guaranteed way to avoid no deal. After all, what if Boris Johnson won the general election? Granted, with the Brexit party challenging, it might seem unlikely, but all parties have their own difficulties. Labour are doing badly in the polls. It may be possible for a Labour, Lib Dem and SNP coalition to form in theory, but the Lib Dems have ruled out working with Corbyn, who himself has ruled out working with anyone, and he himself would refuse to stand aside as well. Though if Labour were the largest party in the Commons after a general election, the Queen is likely to name Corbyn as Prime Minister, and he can try and form a minority government. He would definitely seek an extension as he has ruled out a no-deal Brexit, so at least the immediate disaster would be averted. But we cannot rule out the Conservatives winning that general election in these mad times, and if they did, that no deal still goes ahead. So the general election route is far too risky. So the only guaranteed legal way to stop no deal without the political suicide of revoking Article 50 without another public vote, which we don't have time to do without an extension, is to form a government of national unity. Now, there is no other guaranteed way, and the hope would be that when pushed, Corbyn will feel sufficiently trapped into agreeing to it at the last moment. To do otherwise is to see him being responsible for the no-deal Brexit should it be allowed to happen when he had the option of stopping it. It may well be that Corbyn wants to play a game of chicken with Parliament, defeat Johnson in a confidence vote and then tell MPs that they either name him Prime Minister or it's general election time on Johnson's terms. If Parliament stares him down, perhaps he will relent and get behind someone with cross-party support towards the end of the 14-day period. Time will tell. But I hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.